encouraged me to do is let's take a breath together. Don't be afraid. That's kind of the point that we're all sharing the space, we're all present. So everybody inhale and exhale. Thank you. My name is McGrath. I appreciate you all being here today. We've gathered to honor the extraordinary life of my mother, Abigail McGrath, a trailblazing artist, philanthropist, and tireless promoter of Black excellence. We're also here to reflect on the profound and ever-relevant words of Frederick Douglass. As we mourn the staggering loss of my mother, and before we turn to Douglass, whose brilliance laid bare the stains of our country's original sin, I wanted to inject a little levity into the proceedings by bringing up the history of Ireland. My father, Anthony McGrath, was a reluctant vineyard. Truthfully, like most Irishmen, he was pretty reluctant to anything. To him, anything beyond a 5-mile radius of Hell's Kitchen wasn't worth his time. But in their autumn years, my mother encouraged them to reconnect with the vineyard, to be surrounded by crackling debates, challenging conversations, and simply to have more fun. It was in this spirit that my mother founded the Renaissance House, a sanctuary designed to encourage artists while remembering the art and artists of the past. She knew firsthand that artists often go without encouragement and was determined to change that. Encouragement, remembrance, simple ideas, but powerful ones. In honor of my mother, we encourage each other to remember our triumphs, remember the lessons we learned from our setbacks, to remember our history, And in the spirit of the great Americans, Frederick Douglass and Abigail Clatchley, Hubble, Rosa McGrath, now more than ever, please remember to encourage. Thank you. As I have the jacket, we now popcorning to my beloved sister-in-law, Jason's wife, Donica's mother, the glue of our family, which needs a fair amount of glue, Agnes.
I'm the only one who's not an artist in this family. I think you're going to see that as we move along. Find the mic. We're very grateful and humbled that you came. Abby would love this. I was thinking so very much in the last few weeks, and we are a tiny but mighty family. It is Jason, it is Benson, it is Donica, and by marriage it is me. And each of us unique in our positions in the family, much as unique as Abby was. So in thinking about Abby and what I learned from Abby, it's not the public stuff, although that's incredibly amazing. It is that even when you are short in the pocket, you can be imaginative, you can be joyful, you can make magic happen. She put together these baskets sometimes, they were completely wild. And there would be Pez and there would be themes and everything was elevated. It didn't have to cost a lot of money. It was about the thought and care you put behind it. And so for me, a very practical human being, where Christmases used to be, you need a coat. So we're gonna buy a coat. Not Abby. Abby one year gave me a present, everything was pink. Everything was pink. And I thought, I probably needed a coat. But it's okay because it brought me such joy. And when our daughter was born, and we were living a little far away, she sent this little 2-year-old a gold bathing suit. I thought, okay. And I don't know how many hours of joy Donica got out of that gold bathing suit. She was a little older still, maybe 5. She got all the accoutrement that you would need to maybe be, a dancer somewhere. Pink boa, pink heels with fluff on them. And the hours and hours of imagination and joy, and that was just the way Abby thought. So what I learned from her was it's okay to lighten up. It's okay to be joyful even when things are a little rough. And we enjoyed also doing the crosswords puzzles together. My English was okay, but not super great when I first met Jason. My vocabulary was limited, and then here's this family, you know, let's play categories. Shakespeare's tragedies, you know, second acts. And I'm like, we play Parcheesi in my house, you know? So when I choose to remember, it's not the public stuff for me, although she was luminous in everything she did publicly, but it's in the private teachings just by being herself. And as Benson said, elevate, bring joy. We should give each other grace in these times, and remember that we can always do a little bit more, which is what Abby always did. So thank you again for coming. Namaste.
Next up, we'd like to bring Jason's best friend from junior high, also a proud Austin Theater alumnus, and just one of the dearest people in the world, Elliot Manning.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody today? Good, good, good. I see wonderful smiles out there. I'm so glad and pleased to see everybody here today. Thank you ever so much for coming and showing up. We deeply appreciate it as a family, which I think I am part of the family. Yep, I'm also the godfather. So yeah, that's me. Just want to say a couple of words here. I'll be brief as I can. First and foremost, Abby wasn't simply an unforgettable friend. Rather, she was a walking encyclopedia. Specifically, Abby had a brilliant mind, housed in a strong, powerful body. From our initial meeting, through my lifelong brother Jason, when we were either 13 or 14 years old, her friendship was undoubtedly wonderful and also everlasting. There were many times of laughter, sarcasm, and amazingly deep conversation, also guidance, which she helped me grow as an adult. Whenever I close my eyes to this day, I can still vividly see and feel Abby in my heart and soul. Always at her desk, networking, requesting funding through grants, running the summer youth program, all while operating the off-center theater, which we all love dearly. Now, in addition, she also would be relishing an egg salad sandwich with chips, pickles, and a small soda from our favorite place in the world, Julio's, in New York City. Now, she did this also while simultaneously writing and delivering passionate thoughts about the socio-economic implications of today's world in the Vineyard Gazette, which we all know and love. Now, above all, Abby possessed this uncanny ability to transform hard times of any serious discussion and finding a shining light and a touch of comedy in between. Now, when Abby made a statement, it always sounded like profound philosophy. Abby and Tony's apartment was essentially a museum. He also felt a sense of family well inside. It was a treasure trove of memorabilia. It also included Abby Hoffman posters, family posters, and to include old off-center theater photos. There was the iconic piano and classic books from yesteryear. The living room became the space where we enthusiastically watched many Super Bowls and Academy Award shows, all while consuming Abby's delicacies made by her own two hands. Throughout her life, Abby exposed me to so many things and places. She purchased tickets to see my first Broadway play in New York City at 16 years old, Cats. Summers and winter at the Vineyard, and on so many road trips down the way. Abby and Tony were always there for me, even when I was ill. Now, as we now say goodbye to Abby today, our hearts are undoubtedly heavy with loss, yet at the same time bubbling with laughter at the memories that we encountered. Therefore, we say from our heart, thank you for your friendship, being a second mother to me, and your exceptional wisdom you bestowed upon me. Although you're no longer here, Abby, to crack those jokes, nevertheless, the laughter and insight you brought to our lives and my life will always, always echo forever. Without a question, we'll always miss you and love you forever, Miss Abby. Thank you.
Up next, America's granddaughter, my beloved niece, Donica Rosen. So she organized all of this, and she'll tell you the details should you want to ask.
I'm also the speaker. I think I'm so lucky. Abby and Tony were crazy people. And I didn't know they were different. I guess no one knows that their family's different till you know. You know, people are like, you don't call your grandma and grandpa grandma and grandpa. I was like, no, their names are Abby and Tony. And they will say as such, you know. She gave me business cards when I was in high school. She brought one of her infamous gift baskets when I moved into my dormitory. There may have been things in there that freaked my parents out, but it was and to this day, it left an impression on my roommates, and she kind of had that ability to stand out, to have that impression, to have that presence. She kind of couldn't help it. I think we were the first internet trolls when AOL came out. She all of a sudden was 23, I all of a sudden was 19. We were not those ages. So who gets to do that with their grandma? I don't know. And she was larger than life, which can kind of make you wonder, what do you do? How do you continue? Which I think has been a big thought, even up until the end. That's a little getter. But I think this is a really good first step right here. So I really want to thank everybody, because there's just such an amazing legacy, which is a whole different part of loss. And this event here just makes it feel doable for us as a family. So I really want to thank everybody for allowing that space and making it feel just a little bit possible and like we can continue, even if she's not here with us anymore. I think I'm also really lucky in the fact that before Abby, there was great-grandma Helen, who was an amazing poet, and great-aunt Dorothy, who was an amazing writer. And I kind of wondered, I'm not a writer, I'm not a performer, you know, how do I fit in? And I think without realizing it, I became a producer, which is all about kind of elevating other people to make things. And I did inherit her bossy gene. So to all that have been in my wake leading up to this, I'm sorry, and but it is appreciated. And with that, I did just want to read a poem for my great-grandma as well, which I've never done before, so I picked a short one. But there's a word in here which I also think defines Abby. The poem is, I am not proud. I am not proud that I am bold, or proud that I am black. Color was given me as a gauge, and boldness came with that. I think at first I felt a little overwhelmed, and I just was reminded at the end that Abby dreamed big and she was bold, and I think I'm just going to keep reminding myself to not be scared and to just kind of keep at it a little bit. So thank you again, and I think I'll stop now and exit semi-gracefully. Thank you.
Donica is also the prettiest of us all, by measure. We just discuss art and the conflict between art and livelihood and the ability to do those things. This next gentleman who you heard perform so well is the only one of our family who's been an artist his entire life, and at a very high level. I love him like a brother. My idol, Jason Rosen.
First of all, the most attractive member of our family couldn't be here today because she got skunked last night. Zora, her Boston Terrier, got, she for the first time, did the old, the old skunk shake. So she's not here. I know you were all missing her. I have to say we had a surprise guest here that I didn't know was going to be here. And she, when I was growing up, before he was born, and I was the little prince, the only one. My mother didn't have any brothers and sisters, neither did my grandmother, so there were no relatives. Austin and Frederick was my family. Annette Burnell is here. She's one of the original Austin Theater cast members. She originated the role of Little Red Riding Hood and plays it to this day. And she has to leave pretty soon to catch a boat, and she must come up because she's as much family as I have. Please.
Jason did surprise me. However, I brought some props because I thought I was going to give them to the family. But now I see their family is very large. So first, I think I want to show you my shirt. I will do the stance that Tony taught us all whenever we came out of the curtain. That is, so I gave them a copy. Off-Center moved around a lot. And so when I was 16, I met Tony and Abby. So I'm counting 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66. My goodness. I have known them since I was 16 and I am now 76. So that's a long time to know somebody. They're ups, they're downs. This is the church where I met them. This was my church, Good Shepherd Faith Presbyterian Church. And they did their shows in the sort of the walk-in part of our church. And at 16, I was on our high school newspaper, and I was on the business committee, and I had to get ads. So where did I go? To the theater. And I asked Tony and Abby, would you give me an ad for our high school newspaper? And he said, yes. And that started everything. So Jason said that I was the first Little Red. I'm not sure I was, because one of the actresses who was in Old Calcutta, I think, was the first. But I was the first Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk. Now, Benson and Jason didn't introduce me to my stage name, which became my official name, which became the only name that they used when I came to visit, which was Baby Annette. Now you wonder, Baby Annette. Okay, well, they're adults and I'm 16. No, that's not the reason. The reason is Abigail and Carol Harden were talking. They had their own conversation, and little people have big ears, so I'm listening. And they happened to say that they were 31, and I said, wow, that's old. That was it. Baby Annette for the rest of my life. Another wonderful part that Jason talked about and referred to Benson, when we would rehearse at the theater, when we were in the church area, Jason liked Yoo-hoo, the drink every time there was a rehearsal, I would bring him a yoo-hoo. Sorry. I was only a kid, what did I know? This other little kid wanted it. Also with Benson, as Jason said, Benson was a little kid. He was a baby. And we had shows at Central Park's Dog Hill. And it was outside where Tony made the canvases for the backdrop. And there was Benson in a baby carriage. And he would come, Abigail would bring him, and he would be in his baby carriage while we did the show. So I saw these two young men, handsome, wonderfully giving young men since they were knee-high to the grasshopper. I said that we moved around a lot, All Center Theater, and one of the places they bought was 436 West 118th Street.
18th Street.
Yes, 18th Street. And this is a t-shirt that they made for us to wear. And it was a fabulous building. It was like a garage, except, really tall. And Tony refinished it for it to become a theater inside. So we had seats, and we did our productions there. And I think I'm going to get off the stage, but when someone makes their transition to the other side, I have a very hard time coming to terms with it. And there's a poem that I read over and over and over until I feel better. And I'm going to share it with you. It may not be your views, but it gives me comfort, and I want to share it. It's called The Traveler, and it's written by James Dillard Freeman, the poet whose poem the astronauts took and placed on the moon. And this particular poem, it goes like this. And I'm going to use both he and she for Tony and Abigail both. Because as I think Jason said, no, Donica said, they're bigger than life. And that's how they felt for me. That's why it was hard for me to come to terms with it, because they were going to be here forever. And here's the poem. He and she have put on invisibility. Dear Lord, I cannot see, but this I know. Although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night, that you will hold him and her gently by the hand and lead them on along the road of life that never ends. And he and she will find it not death, but dawn. I do not doubt that you are there as here, and you will hold them dear. Our life did not begin with birth. It is not of the earth. And this that we call death is no more than an opening and closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms must be beyond this one where we rest momentarily? Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that lives. I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that looking through the shadows sees that you and Tony and Abigail and I are one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Annette. We're gonna get on with this. I just want to say to everyone, especially those of you who knew Abigail and knew her well, I don't have to say anything because you knew. That's it. This was her happy place. Here, and you. I know there were some rumors. She's going to sell the house. She's going to sell the house. She was never going to sell the house. She made it very clear. She said, what would I do? Where would I go? Who would I be with? You people, this place, no matter what, even her fight, her and Dorothy going at it over the park and all that she wouldn't want to be anywhere else but here with you. Yeah? She had two homes that were in her heart. Yeah, New York City and Martha's Vineyard. Right? For many years. The family's been here since 1906. And it's a tradition that we're keeping up. And we want to just say thank you. And Renaissance House that they founded will continue in some fashion or another. We can't do it the way she did it. Nobody can. All right? But give us time. We're figuring it out, sorting through the paperwork, and there will be Renaissance House. All right? And we want to thank everybody who was a part of Renaissance House, all you alum who are out there, everywhere. And basically that's it. Thank you. The last thing I will say is something that those of you who were her students and that she mentored and so forth, she never stopped working. And her mother, Helen, never stopped working. Dorothy never stopped working. 90 years old, senility, whatever, writing stuff. If you want to do something, be somewhere, you got to do it. You can't sit there thinking about it. You know, it's very easy for us to lay back and watch Hulu or whatever it is. You have to exercise your brain. And we're in a digital age where that's happening less and less. So whatever your controversy is for AI and all that, use your mind. Use your mind. Benson's going to come up, thank you, and introduce some of her closest friends. That's not to exclude anyone else, but they're important to us, and there's many of you are, but time is of the essence.
We're going to transition to a little bit more polish now as we bring a fellow barrister onto the stage. Please welcome Barbara Phillips.
It would take a poet to capture fully our friend Abigail McGrath. Her life is an answer to Nina Simone's song, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. Abigail was a free woman. Her life was of her own creation, and she did not conform. Her marriage to Tony McGrath should make all of us believe in miracles. What else explains that these two extraordinary and perfectly matched people found each other? Who else could have had this marriage with either of them? And what a life and family they created. Abigail is known by many people on this island for her newspaper column and as the founder over 20 years ago of Renaissance House, a retreat for writers. She even turned me into a writer, motivated to create a just world. She orchestrated a transformative experience for writers fortunate to spend time there. And as was the case with everything she did, there was this element of creating community, a subtle purpose, often overlooked in discussing her accomplishments.
And as one of our mutual friends, Ruth Odell, mentioned the other day, as welcoming, generous, and wickedly humorous as Abigail could be, she was also discerning in seeing people for who they are. Her life reached into places that may surprise you. As a Mississippian, I was surprised and grateful when I got a call from Abigail about her involvement in creating an incredible memorial to Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer in Sunflower County, Mississippi. She was the greatest organizer of the civil rights movement and a friend. And I hope that one day the film that Abigail dreamed of making about Mrs. Hamer will make its way into the world. I know most of you here today have your own memories of Abigail. I want to share a few remembrances as you recall your own. I will be forever indebted to Liz Benedict, who introduced me to Abigail and Tony over 30 years ago in 1993. She met them during one of those usual vineyard rituals, standing in line at Cronix. She actually stopped by my cottage and said, "You got to meet these crazy people." I was new to the vineyard when I bought my cottage, and it was Abigail and Tony who introduced me and my son to all its treasures, taking us under their wing. And we appeared to have nothing in common, but it was love at first sight. Abigail and Tony knew all the treasures of the island, including lemon pepper bluefish, and shared them with Charles and me. And there were the amazing dinner parties and festivities at their home with extraordinary guests, and Abigail placing culinary brilliance upon the table while wearing a work shirt with Texaco on the pocket. There was her pride in family, especially her pride in the family affair that was creating Au Pair Chocolat. Written by Abigail, directed by Benson, with Tony acting in the drama and Jason composing the soundtrack. It was screened at the 2003 Film Festival here in Oak Bluffs. She treasured Agnes, and Donica was her sunshine. I wish you could have seen her face and heard her voice when she talked about you. Abigail's life was a multifaceted expression of her boundless creativity. As Amanda Gorman concludes in her poem, The Hill We Climb, it goes, "We step out of the shade, plain and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it." And Abigail was brave enough to be it. And so I'm going to conclude with words about love. Although Abigail was not given to expressing sentiment. In fact, I never heard her use the word love. But these words from Will Campbell in his memoir, Brother to a Dragonfly, express my feelings today about Abigail. We had good times together in bed, we laughed together and cried together. We confessed our cares in unlikely places. We worked and piddled, sat on riverbanks and whiled away many an afternoon. We read books, argued about trivial things, and took hard counsel together about the things that mattered. But mostly, we just loved one another.
Polish going, the great incandescent Patty Hirsch.
this mic working? Yes? Well, I never thought I'd be on this stage, but if I was going to be on the stage, this couldn't be a better event. I might be the person who's known Abigail the longest, who's here. We met at Bard College. It's before the Crimean War, the Civil War, etc. Bard College, for anyone who doesn't know, was such a liberal school. Walter Winchell once called it the Little Red Whorehouse on the Hudson. That didn't apply to us. We were at Bard College. Abigail was living off campus because she was married to Jason's father. So she had a more glamorous life. What we met was an Abby and an Abigail, and we got into such mischief. We had such fun there. And then we lived next to each other in New York, where Abigail had this great apartment. You've heard about that. We shared a doctor and a friend. He was a very radical doctor, and he loved the two of us. And he invited us to go to his office every day because Lenny Bruce was hiding out there. So we got to cook food for Lenny Bruce, which was pretty. New York at that time, you could go any place, you could do anything. You could go to a party, get an assignment. You could get a job just by going to the local diner. Not that we got a job at the diner. I was doing publicity. Abigail was at Max's Kansas City and a few other places. And I was able to get us into theater, to second act shows, because we knew all the publicists. And we just had the best time. I never thought it would end 60 years later. Abigail also had a talent for figuring out how to get the things she wanted. I have never met anyone who could, with no collateral, no anything, go into a bank, smile at the bank manager, and come out with a mortgage. I couldn't even come out with a pen. But she was spectacular. We once were at a benefit for Jamaican tourism, and there was a house that was coming up for auction. You could bid on this house for 2 weeks. We wanted that house very badly. It was in San Miguel. So I would hover over the board, hoping people didn't sign a higher bid, and she would loudly say, "Oh my God, that house looks so gorgeous. It's too bad there were 10 murders in the neighborhood last week." We got that house for beyond a song, for $100. She also had a talent for making up things. Stories, anything. She invited me to visit her. She had a house, she said, in Woodstock. She gave me the address. It turned out the house was 30 miles away in Ellenville, which was not as toning as Woodstock. But I must say, when I finally arrived, like 4 hours later, she had a great dinner for us. We had great dinners up here. I have never seen chaos, and an hour later, a dinner for 15 put together. I certainly will miss all of that. I was living in Paris for a while, and Abigail came over to visit me, and within a month, she had met more people than I had known there, having lived there for 6 months. Abigail had the friendship gift, and we all felt we were her best friends, and in many ways we were. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Abby. And up next, Martha's Vineyard legend, Jessica Harris. Abigail and I both have deep vineyard roots. Hers are so much deeper than my own. But we're new friends. We should have been childhood friends. And I should be able to boast of girlhood spent together frolicking in the sand on the beaches or meeting for drinks in the West Village coffee houses. At one point she lived in West Beth and I lived on Jane Street. We shared no such memories, but our all too brief time of knowing each other, in that time, we forged an unbreakable bond. In fact, we only met about 2 decades ago when I was asked by Sandy Grimes to read one of Abigail's mother's poems at a fundraiser. Needless to say, it was friendship at first glance. Abigail's energy, her zest for life, and her careful curation of the artistic legacies of her mother, Helene Johnson, and her aunt, Dorothy West, were inspiring. Abigail was a never-ending and always unfolding gift. In our conversations, I discovered that Abigail had had enough life experiences to fill at least 2 full miniseries, and I'm talking about 12-part miniseries. She'd been a copywriter at Doyle Dane Bernbach in the Mad Men days, when women, much less African-American women, were very rare indeed. She worked as a mannequin at the Folie Bergère in France. At dinner one night, she had my friends in hysterics, recounting her brief, very brief tenure there. It seemed that there were no shoes in her large size. And the ones that she was given tripped her on one of the Folie's legendary stairways with predictable results. Next child, please. She then left rapidly the Folies and became a solo dancer at the Crazy Horse Saloon. Abigail appeared in Broadway and off-Broadway shows, written and produced the film that you've heard about, and was, as you saw in the images, an Andy Warhol tub girl. And I'm going to step up here and say the only black member of the factory. She owned the hat check concession at the Village Vanguard in Max's, Kansas City, and Lou Reed wrote about her in that iconic song, Walk on the Wild Side. And the colored girls go do, that's Abigail. She and her late husband, Tony McGrath, were the founders of the legendary Off-Center Theater Company, which produced, as we heard, experimental plays and street theater around New York City, and served as a launchpad for such actors as John Leguizamo, Christina Baranski, and F. Murray Abrams. As our friendship grew, I was thrilled when she asked me if I would read in the evening programs at Renaissance House. There, Abigail was a combination mother hen, den mother, artistic caretaker, and general good fairy behind everything. Renaissance House also allowed Abigail to indulge in her mastery of entertainment. Some evenings she would prepare full-on, pull all of the stops out dinner parties, complete with place cards, and often a haiku or short poem that she'd written to honor each guest. We at some point discovered that we were both only children and decided that we were the sister that the other had missed and craved. We both honored that. I was the first person in her house after me and said goodbye to her in the hospital the day before she passed. Abigail was a gift giver, as you heard. She gave not massive, expensive items, but small, meaningful ones. A few years back, she gave me a keychain that said, DNA doesn't make you family. Love does. I miss you, my big sister. See you on the other side. This has been wonderful. We have another extraordinary guest, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. I grew up in Manhattan Plaza, which is on 42nd Street, and my parents and I lived on the 43rd floor, and Abigail, Tony, and the family lived on the 37th floor. I felt like I was the daughter Abby never had, and but when I moved out, I moved to the 26th. My parents moved to the 26th floor. And my parents were also an interracial couple, so when I would, that picture that you're seeing of Abby, Tony, and Benson, I always felt it resonated with me because it looked like my family. I started coming to the Vineyard at 10 years old and staying at my uncle's home with my cousin Pam and Carol, and over the years, the Vineyard has become a sanctuary for me, and my spirit rests here, and I feel safe and at home. About 15 years ago, I came up to the Vineyard with my cousin Carol, and Abby was having one of her amazing writers' retreats at Renaissance House, and there I met Belle Powell, who Abby and Tony were very close with. And meeting Belle changed my life because it was the seed and the inspiration for my screenplay that I would write and further develop at Renaissance House. Things I loved about Abby, her humor, her straightforwardness, her no-nonsense directness felt like tough love. Her cooking was out of this world. I don't know about questionable, but she also spoke in a manner that felt like she was from another era at times, and that always, I just love that. And her written word and how she loved the arts and the creative process. Now, currently I live in Los Angeles, but right before right before the pandemic, I was shooting a TV show in New York, and I was staying in Abby's apartment, as I was saying, on the 37th floor, and outside her bedroom window was the Empire State Building. So I would watch the lights change every week, and it was so magical. However, that same year, my father unexpectedly passed away, and I was inconsolable. And I moved downstairs to be with my mother, and Abby sent me a note which meant so much to me. And I want to read it, a portion of what she wrote me, because Danica, what you were talking about what it means to lose someone. And so this is a portion of what Abby wrote to me. She said, "I'm sure there are fathers who love their daughters as much as he loved you, but he didn't just reference it as she's doing great. He would ride past his stop on the elevator and tell me every little thing about you that you had done or would do, or the people you met, or what you had for dinner that night before. And man, he was agog when it came to talking about his little girl. And that smile, that warm, inclusive, make you feel better smile. Have you any idea how healing and divine that smile could be? You had it your whole life, and the rest of us only got it on the elevator. Let's pray for gratitude." So Abby's words helped me heal in my process of losing my father. So today, I'd like to share a song that I wrote for my father, which is called "The Love You've Given Me." And I dedicate it to Jason, Benson, and the family with the hopes that it can be healing in your process as well. City to ride my blue bicycle. The day the training wheels came off, you said there is nothing to fear. I'll be right by your side. And as the pace grew faster and faster, you said don't look back, you're doing fine, I'm by your side. Little did I know I was riding on my own. 'Cause you held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget, no love you give on me. You held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget all the love you given me. Now we talk, I tell you all my frustrations. This life is taking me through, and you say here's some wisdom I've learned through my experience, and I pass it on to you. And in your face I see your wins and your losses, but most of all what I see is someone who strived to teach me to live my life with truth and dignity. I want to thank you, 'cause you held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget, no, no, love you've given me, oh, you held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget all the love you give on me. You've given me. Thank you, Abby.
And this is going to close the memorial portion of the afternoon. We're going to move on to the Frederick Douglass speech. What to the slave is the 4th of July. We're going to introduce Akani Themba, but as she comes up, I have to say this. Akani, I have to say, because she just passed a short while ago, our on Island auntie, Olive Tomlinson, we want to pay some respect. I had the pleasure of being directed by this young man playing Forrest Tomlinson and her husband in the blockbuster hit Au Pair Chocolate.
Still available on 8-track.
And shout out to Mia over here, who's been helping us in every single way. Most importantly, we lost Olive, but we gained. My brother just got married, Isabella. Miss Isabella. Big congratulations, they just got married.
Now we talk, I tell you all my frustrations. This life is taking me through, and you say here's some wisdom I've learned through my experience, and I pass it on to you. And in your face I see your wins and your losses, but most of all what I see is someone who strived to teach me to live my life with truth and dignity. I want to thank you, 'cause you held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget, no, no, love you've given me, oh, you held me in your arms when I was born. You filled me with your love, now I'm on my own. I will not forget all the love you give on me.
I feel like we need a breath. We need a breath. And while we take a minute, I'm going to ask all my readers to come forward, if you aren't already sitting forward. But before we get completely started, we have a special guest to start us off. So before Jordan comes up, who's gonna kick us off, I just want to say thank you to all of you. Many of you guys who are reading have read the entire 21 years. 21 years. That this reading is old enough to drink. And I'm sure it will after. And then the other thing too, just in honor of Abby, this meant so much to her. Because it wasn't just the reading of the speech, it was an opportunity to build community around justice, around values of freedom, around values that we all could share as a community, no matter what we look like and what our experiences were, that we could share in those values. And that was just so important to her to create that space. And I want to thank everyone who's ever read to who have helped create that space, because that is what she wanted so much. Thank you. Clap it up again. I also want to acknowledge Fred Collins. Fred's up here in the front. I want you to stand up. Fred was the very first reader. And this was before it was the big, community reading down at Inkwell. Fred used to read the entire speech, all 3 hours, unedited. And I think the first reading, we were in the rain. In the rain. I mean, not light rain. Listening to the speech. So I want to acknowledge Fred. And then the last thing is to say a little bit about Abby and Tony. They just mean so much to me personally. I'm not one of those people who go around calling people mom and dad just for the heck of it, but I did call them mom and dad because I felt that way about them. And so it used to be that each year I would sit with the entire 3-hour speech and I would edit it based on what I thought Frederick Douglass wanted to say that year, literally. And then one year I had edited out the part about the church. And Tony said, "That's my favorite part. Don't take that part out. I want to get up there and talk about the church." And so it convinced me actually, not only to put that part back in, but to sort of leave, so many folks know who've read the whole time, know sometimes it changes, but really for the last 10 years, it's been the same speech. And some of you email me in April to make sure you get your part. Just like, so I get to pass all that to Donica. All of us. Yes, clap it up for the next generation. Because 65 has disqualified me from being a youth at this point. So, without further ado, I want to bring up young Jordan, who is going to introduce our speech. Yay, Jordan, come on.
Welcome to our community speech of Frederick Douglass's speech. What to the slave is the 4th of July.
Hi, it's Abigail, again, Abigail McGrath, and we are doing the Frederick Douglass speech again on video because of the COVID. And let me tell you just how thrilled I am that we're still doing it. You know, it's like 22, 3 years, umpteen years that we've been doing it. And each time we do it, at least, a bunch of people learn about a speech that that's not taught in school. And it's so easy nowadays to say that that we're having hard times, right? No, let's do it the other way. No, don't stop. It's easy to say, oh, we're still in slavery. Oh, I'm still shackled, and times are hard, and times are awful, and there's the pandemic, and then there's unemployment, and then there's institutionalized racism, and all of those things that make you think that nothing has happened since Frederick Douglass gave this speech, because it is so on point. Every single word is applicable today, and it was yesterday, and the day before that, and on and on and on, okay? But if someone were to ask you, what is important to you? You would say equal pay, you would say a better job, you would say education is very important to me, housing is very important to me, respect is very important to me, and that's all good. But that wasn't what Frederick Douglass was talking about. You're not going to say running away from my master. You're not going to say being shot for absolutely no reason. And it's true. You can say that today, but those days, if someone owned you, they could do whatever they wanted to you. You're not going to say having my child sold. And that is a major difference between the slavery of Frederick Douglass's day and the slavery of today. The kind of freedom that Frederick Douglass was looking for and talking about, we sort of have, but not really. But, good enough. And what we have to realize today is what he risked to give this speech. And think about it. By giving this speech, he could have lost his children, he could have lost his wife, he could have lost his life, he could have lost any number of things. And although it's true, if you gave a speech like this, well, it's not true. I take it back. If you gave a speech the opposite of this on January 6th, you get out of jail with a slap on your hand. But you know what I'm saying, is that the risks that this man took to say these beautiful words are no longer or not as prevalent today. That's it. They're not as prevalent today as they were then. So when you say to yourself, what is important to you? And what would you risk your freedom for? Think about it. Think about it for a long time. And if you come up with the same answers as Frederick Douglass, and if you think about it while you're watching this video, then you'll have some enlightenment that nobody can ever take away from you. So, once again, watch the speech. It's mostly all island people, so you'll be recognizing your friends in it, and revel. Just revel in the beauty of the words and the concepts. Bye.
What to the slave is the 4th of July? Mr. President, friends and fellow citizens, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between this platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable, and the difficulties to be overcome in getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today is, to me, a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude. This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom. This to you is what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to the day and to the act of your great deliverance, and to the signs, and to the wonders associated with that act and that day. This celebration also marks the beginning of another year of your national life, and reminds you that the Republic of America is now 76 years old.
I am glad, fellow citizens, that your nation is so young. 76 years, though a good age for a man, but a mere speck in the life of a nation. 80 years and 10 is an allotted time for the individual man. But nations number their years by thousands. According to this fact, you are, even now, only in the beginning of your national career, still lingering in the period of childhood. I repeat, I am glad this is so. There is hope in the thought, and hope is much needed under the portending disastrous times, but his heart may well be lighter at the thought that America is young, and that is still in the impressible stage of her existence. May he not hope that height, lessons of wisdom, justice, and truth will yet give direction to her destiny. With the nation older, the patriot's dream might be sadder, and the reformist Brown heavier. Its future might be shrouded in gloom, and the hope of the prophets go out in sorrow. There is consolation in the thought that America is young.
But your fathers, who have not adopted the fashionable idea of this day, of the infallibility of government and the absolute character of its acts, presume to differ from the home government in respect to the wisdom and the justice of some of those burdens and restraints. They went so far in their excitement as to pronounce the measures of government unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive, and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. I scarcely need say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers. Such a declaration of agreement on my part would not be worth much to anybody. It would certainly prove nothing as to what part I might have taken had I lived during the great controversy of 1776. To say now that America was right and England wrong is exceedingly easy. Everybody can say it. The dastard, not less than the noble brave, can flippantly descant on the tyranny of England towards the American colonies. It is fashionable to do so. But there was a time when to pronounce against England and in favor of the cause of the colonies tried men's souls. They who did so were accounted in their day plotters of mischief, agitators and rebels, dangerous men. Decide with the right against the wrong, with the weak against the strong, and with the oppressed against the oppressor. Here lies the merit, and the one which of all others seems unfashionable in our day. The cause of liberty may be stabbed by the men who glory in the deeds of your fathers.
But to proceed, feeling themselves harshly and unjustly treated by the home government, your fathers, like men of honesty and men of spirit, earnestly sought redress. They petitioned and remonstrated. They did so in a decorous, respectful, and loyal manner. Their conduct was wholly unexceptionable. This, however, did not answer the purpose. They saw themselves treated with sovereign indifference, coldness, and scorn. Yet they persevered. They were not the men to look back. As the sheet anchor takes a firmer hold, when the ship is tossed by the storm, so did the cause of your fathers grow stronger as it breasted the chilling blasts of kingly displeasure. The greatest and best of British statesmen admitted its justice, and the loftiest eloquence of the British Senate came to its support. But with that blindness, which seems to be the unvarying characteristic of tyrants, since Pharaoh and his hosts were drowned in the Red Sea, the British government persisted in the exactions complained of. The madness of this course, we believe, is admitted now, even by England, but we fear the lesson is wholly lost on our present rulers.
On the 2nd of July, 1776, the old Continental Congress, to the dismay of the lovers of ease and the worshippers of property, clothed that dreadful idea with all the authority of national sanction. They did so in the form of a resolution, and as we seldom hit upon resolutions drawn up in our day whose transparency is at all equal to this. It may refresh your minds and help my story if I read it. Resolved that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be dissolved. Citizens, your fathers made good that resolution. They succeeded. And today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours. And you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary. The 4th of July is the first great fact in your nation's history. The very ring bolt in the chain of your yet undeveloped destiny.
Pride and patriotism, not less than gratitude, prompt you to celebrate and hold it in perpetual remembrance. I have said that the Declaration of Independence is the ring bolt to the chain of your nation's destiny. So indeed I regard it. The principles contained in that instrument are saving principles. Stand by those principles, be true to them on all occasions, in all places, against all foes, and at whatever cost. How circumspect, exact, and proportionate were all their movements. How unlike the politicians of an hour. Their statesmanship looked beyond the passing moment and stretched away in strength and in the distant future. They seized upon eternal principles and set a glorious example in their defiance. Mark them.
Of this fundamental work, this day is the anniversary. Our eyes are met with demonstrations of joyous enthusiasm. Banners and pennants wave exultingly in the breeze. The din of business, too, is hushed. Even Mammon seems to have quitted his grasp on this day. The ear-piercing fife and the stirring drum unite their accents with the ascending peal of 1,000 church bells. Prayers are made, hymns are sung, and sermons are preached in honor of this day, while the quick martial tramp of a great and multitudinous nation, echoed back by all the hills, valleys, and mountains of a vast continent, bespeak the occasion one of thrilling and universal interest, nation's jubilee.
Friends and citizens, I need not enter further into the causes which led to this anniversary. Many of you understand them better than I do. You could instruct me in regard to them. That is a branch of knowledge in which you feel, perhaps, a much deeper interest than your speaker. The causes which led to the separation of the colonies from the British Crown have never lacked for a tongue. They have all been taught in your common schools, narrated at your firesides, unfolded from your pulpits, and thundered from your legislative halls, and are as familiar to you as household words. They form the staple of your national poetry and eloquence. I remember also that, as a people, Americans are remarkably familiar with all facts which make in their own favor. This is esteemed by some as a national trait, perhaps a national weakness. It is a fact that whatever makes for the wealth or for the reputation of Americans, and can be had cheap, will be found by Americans. I shall not be charged with slandering Americans. If I say I think the American side of any question may be safely left in American hands.
My business, if I have any here today, is with the present. The accepted time with God and His cause is the ever-living now. Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God overhead. We have to do with the past only as we can make it useful to the present and to the future. To all inspiring motives, to noble deeds which can be gained from the past, we are welcome. But now is the time, the important time. Your fathers have lived, died, and have done their work and have done much of it well. You live and must die, and you must do your work. You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned fame of your fathers to cover your indolence. Sidney Smith tells us that men seldom eulogize the wisdom and virtues of their fathers, but to excuse some folly or wickedness of their own.
This truth is not a doubtful one. There are illustrations of it near and remote, ancient and modern. It was fashionable, hundreds of years ago, for the children of Jacob to boast, "We have Abraham to our father," when they had lost Abraham's faith and spirit. That people contented themselves under the shadow of Abraham's great name, while they repudiated the deeds which made his name great. Washington could not die till he had broken the chains of his slaves, yet his monument is built up by the price of human blood, and the traitors in the bodies and souls of men. They shout, "We have Washington to our father." Alas, that it should be so, yet so it is. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones.
What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I, therefore, called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us?
Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light, and my burden easy and delightful. For who is there so cold that a nation's sympathy could not warm him? Who so stoic and selfish that would not give his voice to swell the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude had been torn from its limbs? I am not that man. In a case like that, the dumb might eloquently speak, and the lame man lead as a heart.
But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence, bequeathed by your fathers, is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in the joyous anthems were inhumane mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? If so, there is a parallel to your conduct. And let me warn you that it is dangerous to copy the example of a nation whose crimes, lowering up to heaven, were thrown down by the breath of the Almighty, burying that nation in irrevocable ruin. I can today take up the plaintive lament of a peeled and woe-smitten people.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there, they that carried us away captive required of us a song. And they who wasted us required of us mirth. Say, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth.
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today tendered more intolerable by your jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do not forget, if I do not faithfully remember the bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject, my fellow citizens, is American slavery.
I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. Standing there, identified with the American bonded man, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked so black to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of this nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past. America is false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, and in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled on, dare to call in question and to denounce, with all the emphasis I can command, everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is at heart a slaveholder, shall not confess to be right and just.
But I fancy I hear someone of my audience say, it is just in this circumstance that you and your brother abolitionists fail to make a favorable impression on the public mind. Would you argue more and denounce less? Would you persuade more and rebuke less? Your cause would be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there is nothing to be argued. What point in the anti-slavery creed would you have me argue? On what branch of the subject do the people of this country need light? Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? That point is conceded already. Nobody doubts it. The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, no matter how ignorant he be, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being? The manhood of the slave is conceded. It is admitted in the fact that the Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding, under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or to write. When you can point to any such law in reference to the beast of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls of the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from a brute, there will I argue with you that the slave is a man.
For the present, is it enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race? Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metal of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are all engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing a whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men? Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter behest with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans divided and subdividing a discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom? Speaking of it relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous, and lo, offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him.
What? Am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes? To rob them of their liberty? To work them without wages? To keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men? To beat them with sticks? To flay their flesh with the lash? To load their limbs with irons? To hunt them with dogs? To sell them at auction? To sunder their families? To starve them? To beat them into submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employments for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in that thought. That which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? They that can may. I cannot. The time for such argument is past.
At a time like this,
Scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all of your religious parade and solemnity, are to him more bombast, mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up the crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all these monarchies and despotisms of the whole world, travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your backs by the side of everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for the revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.
Take the American slave trade, which we are told by the papers is especially prosperous just now. Ex-Senator Benton tells us that the price of men was never higher than now. He mentions the fact to show that slavery is in no danger. This trade is one of the peculiarities of American institutions. It is carried on in all the large towns and cities in one half of this confederacy, and millions are pocketed every year by dealers in this horrid traffic. In several states, this trade is a chief source of wealth. It is called, in contradistinction to the foreign slave trade, the internal slave trade. It is probably called so too in order to divert it from the horror with which the foreign slave trade is contemplated. That trade has long since been denounced by this government as piracy. It has been denounced with burning words from the high places of the nation as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, to put an end to it, this nation keeps a squadron at immense cost on the coast of Africa. It is, however, a notable fact that while so much execration is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in the foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable.
Behold the practical operation of this internal slave trade, the American slave trade, sustained by American politics and American religion. Here you will see men and women reared like swine for the market. You know what is a swine drover? I will show you a man drover. They inhabit all our southern states. They perambulate the country and crowd the highways of the nation with droves of human stock. You will see one of these human flesh jobbers armed with pistol, whip, and bowie knife driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac to the slave market at New Orleans. These wretched people are there to be sold singly or in lots to suit purchasers. They are food for the cotton fields and the deadly sugar mill. Mark the sad procession as it moves wearily along, and the inhuman wretch who drives them. Hear his savage yells and his blood-chilling oaths as he hurries on his affrighted captives. There, see the old man with locks thinned and gray? Cast one glance, if you please, at that young mother whose shoulders are bare to the scorching sun, her briny tears falling on the brow of the babe in her arms. See too that girl of 13 weeping, yes, weeping, as she thinks of the mother from whom she has been torn. The drove moves tardily. Heat and sorrow have nearly consumed their strength. Suddenly, you hear a quick snap like the discharge of a rifle. The fetters clank and the chain rattles simultaneously. Your ears are saluted with a scream that seems to have torn its way to the center of your soul. The crack you heard was the sound of the slave whip. The scream you heard was from the woman you saw with the babe. Her speed had faltered under the weight of her child and her chains. That gash on her shoulder tells her to move on. Follow this drove to New Orleans. Attend the auction. See men examined like horses. See the forms of women rudely and brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. See this drove sold and separated forever. And never forget the deep, sad sobs that arose from the scattered multitude. Tell me, citizens, where, under the sun, can you witness a spectacle more fiendish and shocking? Yet this is but a glance at the American slave trade as it exists at this moment in the ruling part of the United States.
I was born amid such sights and scenes. To me, the American slave trade is a terrible reality. When a child, my soul was often pierced with a sense of its horrors. In the eerie, still darkness of midnight, I have been often aroused by the dead, heavy footsteps and the piteous cries of the chain gangs that passed by out there. Fellow citizens, the murderous traffic is today an active operation in this republic. It is the solitude of my spirit. I see the clouds of that raised in the highways of the South. I see the bleeding footsteps. I hear the dreadful wail of fettered humanity on the way to the slave markets, where the victims are then sold like horses, sheep, knocked off to the highest bidder. There I was, and there they were, relentless and ruthlessly broken. My soul shivers and sickens at the sight.
But a still more inhuman, disgraceful, and scandalous state of things remains to be presented by an act of the American Congress, not yet 2 years old. Slavery has been nationalized in the most horrible and revolting form. By that act, Mason and Dixon's line has been obliterated. New York has become as Virginia, and the power to hold, hunt, and sell men, women, and children as slaves remains no longer a mere state institution. It's now an institution of the whole United States. The power is coextensive with the Star-Spangled Banner and American Christianity. Where these go, may also go the merciless slave hunter. Where these are, men are not sacred. Man is a bird for the sportsman's gun. For black men, there is neither law, justice, humanity, nor religion. The Fugitive Slave Act makes mercy to them a crime and bribes the judges who try them. An American judge gets $10 for every victim he consigns to slavery, and $5 when he fails to do so.
I take this law to be one of the grossest infringements of Christian liberty, and if the churches and ministers of this country were not stupidly blind or most wickedly indifferent, they too would so regard it. At the very moment that they are thanking God for the enjoyment of civil and religious liberty, and for the right to worship God according to the dictates of their own consciences, they are utterly silent in respect to a law which robs religion of its chief significance and makes it utterly worthless to a world lying in wickedness. Did this law concern the mint, anise, and cumin, abridge the right to sing psalms or partake of the sacrament, or to engage in any of the ceremonies of religion, it would be smitten by the thunder of 1,000 pulpits. A general shout would go up from the church demanding repeal, instant repeal.
But the church of this country is not only indifferent to the wrongs of the slave, it actually takes sides with the oppressors. It has made itself the bulwark of American slavery and the shield of American slave hunters. For my part, I would say welcome infidelity, welcome atheism, welcome anything in preference to the gospel as preached by those divines. They convert the very name of religion into an engine of tyranny. These ministers make of religion a cold and flinty-hearted thing, having neither principles of right action nor bowels of compassion. They strip the love of God of its beauty and leave the throne of religion a huge, horrible, repulsive form. It is a religion for oppressors, tyrants, man-stealers, and thugs. In speaking of the American church, however, let it be distinctly understood that I mean the great mass of the religious organizations of our land. There are exceptions, and I thank God that there are.
Americans, your Republican politics, not less than your Republican religion, are flagrantly inconsistent. You boast of your love of liberty, your superior civilization, and your pure Christianity, while the whole political power of the nation, as embodied in the two great political parties, is solemnly pledged to support and perpetuate the enslavement of 3 million of your countrymen. You hurl your anathemas at the crown-headed tyrants of Russia and Austria, and pride yourselves on your democratic institutions, while you yourselves consent to be the mere tools and bodyguards of the tyrants of Virginia and Carolina. You glory in your refinement of your universal education,
Yet you maintain a system as barbarous and dreadful as ever stained the character of a nation. A system began in avarice, supported in pride, and perpetuated in cruelty. You are all on fire at the mention of liberty for France or for Ireland, but are as cold as an iceberg at the thought of liberty for the enslaved of America. You discourse eloquently on the dignity of labor, yet you sustain a system which, in its very essence, casts a stigma upon labor.
You can bare your bosom to the storm of British artillery to throw off a 3-penny tax on tea, and yet wring the last earned farthing from the grasp of the black laborers of your country. You profess to believe that, of one blood, God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another, yet you notoriously hate and glory in that hatred all men whose skin are not colored like your own. You declare before the world, and are understood by the world to declare, that you hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet you hold securely in a bondage which, according to your own Thomas Jefferson, is worse than that ages of that which your fathers rose in rebellion to oppose, a 7th part of the inhabitants of this country. Fellow citizens, I will not enlarge further on your national inconsistencies. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base pretense, and your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing, and by a word, to a mocking earth. It is the antagonistic force in your government, the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union. It fetters your progress. It is the enemy of improvement, the deadly foe of education. It fosters pride. It breeds insolence. It promotes vice. It shelters crime. It is a curse to the earth that supports it, and yet you cling to it as if it were the sheet anchor of all your hopes. Oh, be warned. Be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and fling from your hideous monster, and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever.
I have detained my audience entirely too long already. At some future period, I will gladly avail myself of an opportunity to give this subject a full and fair discussion. Allow me to say, in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and the doom of slavery is certain. I therefore leave off where I began, with hope, while drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions. My spirit is also cheered by the obvious tendencies of age. Nations do not now stand in the same relation to each other that they did ages ago. No nation can now shut itself out from the surrounding world and trot around in the same old path of its fathers without interference. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. It makes its pathway over and under the sea, as well as on the earth. Wind, steam, and lightning are its chartered agents.
Oceans no longer divide. Rather, they link nations together. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Space is comparatively annihilated. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic are distinctly heard on the other. The far-off and almost fabulous Pacific rolls in grandeur at the feet. The celestial empire, the mystery of ages, is being solved. The fiat of the Almighty, let there be light, has not yet spent its force. No abuse, no outrage, whether in taste, sport, or avarice, can now hide itself from the all-pervading light. In the fervent aspirations of William Lloyd Garrison, I say, and let every heart join in saying it. God speed the year of Jubilee, the wide world over, when from their galling chains bear the yoke of tyranny like loose.
And I also just want to say another thank you to Jason, because every single year we've done this, even on the beach, he dragged his expensive behind equipment, there's kids in the room, you know what I want to say, through the sand. We have even done this on the beach in the rain. And Jason has been out there filming, making sure, lugging stuff for his mother, all the things to make that happen. And I feel like Jason deserves an extra applause for making that happen. And also, before I turn over, because Jason's at the mic, he must want to say something. I was going to say one more thing before I sit down. And that is, I would like for you to please applaud all of our leaders. Y'all are amazing. Everybody comes through. We only had one no-show today. You can tell when you see me, that means there's a no-show. But usually everybody does show up, and we have had readers range in age from 5 to 94 over the years. So thank you.
Thank you, Matani, because this doesn't exist without you. So Abigail's foundation was the Helene Johnson Dorothy West Foundation for Artists in Need. And her project before she passed was to convert or transform what was known as Asbury Park, the property she owned across from her home, into an artist's poetry garden. And we're endeavored to succeed in that. It'll take us a little time, and it'll take less time if you look at the QR code and donate generously. It is tax deductible. You have some words to say?
Yeah, true Abby fashion. We're asking for money. It's for a good cause. it's for community, it's for art. The Renaissance tradition will continue. We want this to be a space where people can congregate, perform, celebrate, and hopefully just be a little inspired and pay tribute to the artists before us. So on the back of the cards, which I've been handing out like candy, I got many more. You know, take a look. Any dollar will help a lot, and this is just the first step. So thank you all very, 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 very much.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everybody now. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We'll see you next year. Same bat time, same bat channel right here.